have a very interesting entrepreneur story here. In Finland, our politicians have been mentioning a lot that we want to have a gigafactory here in Finland, but you are going to double that. You are going to build a terafactory, and you have also lots and lots of other issues going on, underboiling. Many companies you've been involved. So please, the floor is yours. We are eager to hear your story.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here. This is not a set of instructions. This is not a model or anything. It's something that I've developed over the years, and how I've been able to pull some things up and wreck some other things. So just a brief introduction. I put my age there, so because now I need to know this year everything about the universe and life and so forth, if you know the reference, 4042. So my startup entrepreneur friends said that you are not serial entrepreneur, you are doing something else, so why wouldn't you be a matrix entrepreneur? And that was a kind of new idea, that why wouldn't I use that and try that as a new brand and see how it works, because putting up companies in serial, in parallel, it's a completely different thing than living with one company at one time. And being in the electric vehicle kind of front, hobbying it and studying it, traveling around the world, being part of different kind of development programs in the China EV bus programs and National 863 program and so forth. So I have some good friends there. And I branded myself akkuJukka. This is for Finnish people, that is quite clear that akku means a battery. I did not know that. No one knew that when they give my name, my mother and father, but when you read it backwards, it's also the same. So some priorities, why things are done in a way. I'm very passionate to create new things. I'm really anxious to get new things moving fast. And that makes me to go further with technologies and try new things and spin off new companies from those ideas. And how it's done in a way that, how can I manage 9 startups at the same time? It sounds impossible, and it is impossible, but it comes from that. So here's, for example, good story is the Greensmith story here in the below. He's built in China the first battery systems and built the company that Wärtsilä acquired some time ago. And Parking Energy is now growing fast and so forth. So my kind of thinking is that every day there's new thing to learn, if it's in financing or technology or some other kind of aspect that pushes the technology and ideas forward. So these are the drivers, and I believe that everyone else has a talent, and the talent is something else than just being able to pull your tongue in a reel. It's something real, something more tangible that you can really utilize and put it in a use. So before I start a new company, I go through the basic thesis. That is the idea refined enough? Is it really something that is spinnable? Does it have a real market that can it grow to? Is it 10 years away, 15 years away? Does it need some key technologies that it can be pulled forward? And before going forward, I really kind of listen my intuition a lot. And I think that is very important, everyone to be able to listen to. So these things apply to everyone, I believe. It's not just me, but this is how I've been able to shape the process a bit further. So I know that failure is imminent on every project at some time. It's quite obvious that they will fail, and many of them have failed. But you don't know until you try, and that's kind of the thing in this you can try but never fail society thinking, that when you fail something, it's kind of seen as a negative thing. But I think the Edison was also already saying long time ago that he just found out 10,000 ways that didn't work, but he kind of learned from that. So then it's time to take the leap of faith and try it out. If it feels the gut feeling is bad, I push the idea back for a couple of years and let it get a bit further. So the strategy on every startup, every idea that goes forward, it's based on risks, because risks makes you fail, and kind of opportunities make you go forward step by step. But the showstopper is the risk. So how do I map all the risks? And that takes a lot of time and energy to try to figure out every possible scenario that can go wrong, and then make a plan for that. And the business plan in the early stage, before spinning it to the company, is basically in the head, or it's in one pager, and it builds up from that only after basically the team comes in. Until that, it's in a fluid mode, and it needs to be changed all the time. So I don't necessarily write the business plan. The team will write the business plan after getting the thing a bit forward. Kind of the first year in a company, like in the parking energy and in the battery factory projects and many other projects so far, it's been a solo ride. So I kind of go forward with the first year doing everything from accounting to media and so forth. So basically learning to do everything in a company, and then when right people come along, then giving more tasks out of my responsibility until I've made myself completely useless for the organization. That's basically the aim. It is pushing and giving opportunity to people, and in many startups, when there's a software or very difficult problem related to the hardware, it's easy to find the geniuses to get the dream team when you have a big enough challenge. And then when you start building that dream team, it attracts more similar-minded people, and then it kind of starts growing its own. The message is getting further, and people get together. But in the first year, it needs time to meet everyone, meet decision makers, politicians, all kind of things, to find out the opportunity, if there is a roadblock or some reason. Because usually these startups are trying to disrupt something, and there's a existing business or kind of policy behind it. So when the people come in and start building the company, they need to have freedom to do what they know the best, and it's kind of letting, starting to teach a young child to walk, for example. You need to let go and be there and support, and then suddenly they start running. But then you need to just patch all the sharp corners. So it's steering, not micromanaging. That can work also in certain situations. When you have a very hectic situation and the people are still coming in, you need to probably participate to every decision making in the company. The investors can also be participated in a way that they come in and then they support the story and go around and help to push the envelope forward. And that's giving them also some freedom to walk. So far, the timeline has been about something like this. So before the first year, the basic team members, 2 or 3 people, have been gathered, and the first business case is starting to come up, and we try it out and see if it evolves further. And if that step is successful and we don't go belly up, it means that in about 24 months we have concepts in the market. And in 36 months, there need to be commercial agreements already without subsidies and kind of without too much pushing. And if that goes fine, then we are on the 48-month surroundings. It can be a bit longer. For example, in the parking energy, now the A round is up, and the growth financing is needed to go really global. So that's on time there. And to me, it's already at that point usually a a board membership and participating in general decision making, but it's partially exited already. And in 72 months, hopefully, there's it goes along. It's like in the Greensmith case, for example, it took almost 5 years, I guess, to develop completely out after I stopped working there. So this is also what I think, that the unicorn is it's a legendary story about doing something really big and successful, but basically in every idea there is a potential for unicorn. It's of course there's a lot of ideas that are really not mature for that, but they are not found, they are built. There's a professional team, people who have a special set of skills, and they communicate each other. The team is working together fluently. Then you can grow up something. We had a good dream team on FEVT in about 10-15 years ago. So we had very brilliant people on different sectors, from software to electronics and hardware and financing. And we were able to pull that to European batteries, which was then the Varkauden. Riding a unicorn is like riding a horse. Just need some luck and skills to stay on there. And so identifying the disruption is important, but it's something that, like in this energy sector, there's a lot of commotion going on in the battery sector, for example, and we see a lot of advancements in different technologies. Some people are talking H2 and so forth, but what really sticks out and identifies the disruption, that is something that is kind of the hardest thing to do. But it's when you also identify the most difficult thing to do, it usually means that there's no competition, because no one else is as nuts as you are to even try that out. So that's also the reason why the fail rate is high. So the disruption, it can be also identified, but it can also induced and primed. It means that we can push that message further, we can initiate something, we can open discussions. The e-cars now, electric car open source project, was one of those. So we really touched the global scale of media by telling that we are willing to do electric cars free of charge, basically. We developed the kits and everyone has the instructions how to do it, because the automotive OEM was not willing to do it. And it very rapidly grew a big project with thousands of participants and a lot of satellite projects globally. And same thing goes from the solar energy side. These kind of demand is identified. People want to be more independent at their homes, and they want to build their solutions. So these are now one of the biggest megatrends going on, that it's going to disrupt things. So solving a problem for a user and then allowing users to participate, you get usually the disruption going on. It usually does not come from the main industry doing the same business, or which is being affected. They actually try to push everything down. And this was in the e-cars now project very clearly visible when we were given this thick pile of instructions how we can do the electric car, and we never can do it, while at the same time the automotive industry was not even mandated to use the same rule book, and it was very unfair. But we proved the concept. So this is now the next, not big, but giant thing. And everyone is talking about gigafactories and so forth. And from the previous factory projects globally, there was a gigafactory in Russia that were provided by my friend to Novosibirsk in 2011. It was already a $700 million project, and kind of in gigafactory class. But it failed because the market was not primed and it was not built in the right way. So everyone is looking now in the battery sector to get a piece of action, and that seems to be a huge trend. And at the same time, all the lessons learned from the past 20 years in the lithium-ion battery industry tells me that we need to take really the next step further. And that is go to the full vertical integration. It means that we need to have a good control from the mines through raw material development to cell manufacturing, system manufacturing, and all the way to the PPAs, so power purchase agreements. So people who take the home battery at their use, they will pay us in a service fee. And probably in this situation in Finland, the costs will actually decline from the existing grid fee basis. So I expect people to go down to the math and look into that I'm paying this much now and we are putting all the cables underground. But what if we have the solar system and the battery? Can we really be more cost efficient there? And it is. So this is why now the next factory is going to be built in Janakkala. The land has been secured and the project is going forward and it's going to be quite a big of facility. It will drive in some new innovations in the manufacturing because currently everyone is basically buying, if you look and compare the process, it's like buying a inkjet printer. So people who are building big factories, they are buying thousands of inkjet printers. And we are going full-blown directly to the laser printing. And it's kind of different kind of approach. So Terafactory is named because by 2030, the equipment in the factory will be able to build 1 terawatt hour annually of lithium-ion batteries. We will be in the epicenter of the battery revolution in Finland. So don't look into China anymore. It's old school. Thank you.
Thank you, Jukka. What do you eat for breakfast? I mean, thinking about that issues.
Pieces of glass.
Okay.
Proteins.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, any questions now to Jukka?
Can you reveal anything of the investment plan schedule?
For the Terafactory? Well, the basic investments are already in, and the groundbreaking should happen fairly after the summer, depending now on the permission processes. So that's the timetable, and it's to a bit agitate the situation. Now, if we look to the Sweden side, they have a huge project going on, and they needed to hire plenty of people to do the things. But since I've been involved in about a dozen battery factory projects so far, I pretty much know all the steps and copy-paste the idea and use the existing equipment. So I guess one man can do the same thing than 150 Swedes. What do you think?
Including Cuba and safety.
Yes, yes.
Yes, hi, Arpekka from Aktiva. I just wanted to know, because it looks quite easy that you have an idea, then you take the team, and then. But obviously, you have capital from the first no failures. But how to do it from the beginning? It seemed to be a little bit too easy for me.
Yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy, and it doesn't require that much capital. The first steps. The first year, we are talking tens of thousands in capital when you go the first year through. When the burn rate starts to go higher, you go for the seed round and you go through the usual suspects to get the capital in. And in the Parking Energy case, for example, it took several rounds to go to that about 3-4 million euros. And that it is constant negotiations and feeling for the financing.
That was a good question. It is easy when you succeed, but then like we have met so many entrepreneurs that are hungry, and starving at some point. So it's not that easy actually.
Yeah, of course I have to admit that it doesn't make any harm that I have a personal Chinese billionaire friend, but
yeah, that was with the big pockets, like Pekka mentioned earlier. Well, that was anyway a good example of networking and linking to the right contacts and being active in creating your own networks. Okay, and then also I think it was a very good example of, like I mentioned in the beginning, that the energy sector is under huge restructuring and new players are coming to the field, and you are one example of that one. So maybe to some people it came out of the bushes that okay, now we get a Terrafactory investment here. We were probably the usual suspects as many would have expected. So game changers exist and game changers we need, and with them we also want to cooperate in different parts of the world. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jukka. And